Hey, Champion Nation. Welcome to the Champion Nation podcast.
And then I ask people to ask themselves three fundamental questions, which we should do in our business as well. And that's included in the book. But it's the three questions are, where am I? Right? So where am I mentally? Where am I spiritually? Where am I emotionally, physically, vocationally, financially, whatever? Where am I? Then we go, okay, now I know where I am. I'm grounded. I'm present. A lot of people don't have a hard time being present. So you get grounded, you get present. This is where I stand currently. Then I go, where do I want to go? Okay, I'm here. And where do I want to go in the next 6 months or 3 months or a year or whatever? And then after that, the next obvious question is, how the heck do I get there?
Hey, Champion Nation. It is K. Sean Cooper, your host of the Champion Nation podcast. I am here with Kyle Gillette. Did I say that right, Kyle?
You got it, K. Sean.
I'm here with Kyle Gillette. I could not wait for this opportunity to sit down and chat with him briefly, just for a few moments on. I'm really curious about this farm life. That's what I'm really curious about hearing. My wife, she's born in Baltimore, Maryland. We live here in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the things that she always tells me is, hey, I want to retire on a farm. So when I saw Kyle's background, being agriculturally astute, I couldn't wait for this opportunity. Hey, Kyle, welcome to the Champion Nation.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's great to meet you, and I'm excited to share wisdom and insight and learn from you as well.
Absolutely. So we're gonna dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get where you're at, and why you are there?
Yeah, so I did grow up on an orange farm in the Central Valley of California. A lot of people have heard of Fresno, California, and so it was near there, and it's a hot area in the summer, 110, 116 degrees on really, really hot days. So part of the reason that I'm not there anymore is because of that, and moved out to the Central Coast of California to go to school there. Got my degree in kinesiology, which is exercise science, physical therapy, and discovered that wasn't for me. There's obviously all kinds of stories behind all this, but went there and then got invited to be a part of a men's mentoring program. Did that, got married, had some kiddos, moved up to the Pacific Northwest because my wife's family's out here, and then got exposed to some things. And I realized, you know what? I really love serving people and I really love coaching, and started my own business. And 5.5 years later, I'm now talking to you. So that's the shotgun. I'll give you more details as we go, but that's the shotgun version.
That was the expedited version.
Yes,
I like that.
exactly.
I was like, oh man, he's done in 30 seconds.
Exactly. Like I'm sitting at the networking event where they give you 30 seconds to introduce your business. I told everybody about my life in 30 seconds. So we done this.
You have studied and mastered it very well, Kyle. I appreciate that. Kyle, can you share a pivotal moment? Can you share a pivotal moment in your upbringing on the orange grove that shaped your values and aspirations, eventually leading you to become a mindset coach and the creator of Blue Shirt Leadership Coaching, the Blue Shirt Leadership Framework that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. When I saw your question ahead of time and I was thinking about like, what was the one moment? And there's two. There's one that I'll share with you that's real short, where I shot out a light bulb in a big 60-foot tall light post that my dad had to climb up and replace the bulb. And then he asked me what happened, and I just flat out lied to him, which is so counter to my family and who I am and who we are. So that was a pivotal moment for me to realize that, man, I want to be a liar. And I was in that moment. But the one that I really want to share about is we lived on a farm, 40 acres of oranges. And we had 2 barns and we had a pool. And I remember walking out, it was about 5:30 in the morning to go to work for my dad. This is probably when I was 15 years old, approximately. I don't think I had my car yet. So I was 15 years old. And you can walk out past the pool, and then there's a wooden fence, and then all the oranges are kind of passed back there. And my job for that summer was to prune 10 acres of oranges by hand. So I already mentioned that it's 100 something degrees outside in the summer. So it's always 100 something degrees outside. And when it's 5:30 in the morning, it might be 86, 87 degrees outside on a real hot day, or 80 if you're lucky. So anyway, I'm going out there knowing that here I go again. I'm going to go prune some more oranges, which means I need to get underneath the tree, get all sweaty and scratched up, and lop off the branches, because we had accidentally killed the bottom. It's called the skirts of the orange trees, and you don't need that. So I was cutting them off. I was really pissed. I didn't want to do that anymore. I'd been doing it for like weeks already, and I was over it. And so I remember walking out that gate, slamming the gate and breaking it. And then I think I cursed or yelled at my dad because he was in the truck driving, just happened to be driving by, and I was walking out. So anyway, later in the day, so I go out and do a little bit of the work. Later in the day, he comes back to me and we have a conversation. I actually don't remember the conversation, to be honest, but we have a conversation about it and how I was so pissed and like I wanted to kill myself. And I was being super dramatic because I didn't really want to kill myself, but I was being really dramatic. And so then we had a conversation and some things shifted, but it was primarily that I went, you know what? I got a job and I'm getting paid. I was getting paid better than the minimum wage at the time. And I was sweating and I was working hard, and all of that, even when I was that young, I went, you know what, this is good for me. And I think my dad might have kind of pushed that on me in that conversation too. This is good for you, son. And so by the time that whole experience happened and I had opportunities to reflect on it, I went, this sucks, but it's really good for my work ethic and what it is to really grind. And so that's obviously paid forward in massive ways in all kinds of areas of life.
And you said this was at age 15?
Roughly, yeah, 15, 14. I was fairly young, yeah.
Why do you think your dad, was it a family business?
Yeah.
And do you have other siblings?
Yeah, I have a sister. Yeah.
So all the work was on you?
I mean, there's a bunch of other guys that did work there.
Okay.
I worked in the summers, and I did some pruning, did some weed spray, and I took care of the irrigation and various other things during the summers.
Okay, and I guess what I'm trying to get to is, why did your father ask you? What was his purpose? Was it because, hey, this is my boy, and you're gonna get out there and sweat like a dog, or what was his rationale?
Yeah, my dad started farming when he was 16. He started working with his dad when he was 16. Then he went off to college, and same school I went to actually, and then came back and started a business in the Central Valley. And so his work ethic has always been, you get up at 5:30 or 5, you start working and you're done at 6 p.m. And you do that 6 to 7 days a week. This is what you do. And so he was embedding that work ethic into me. The beauty of it all is, despite that level of work ethic and pressure that was on me to watch him do that, and then he asking me to do that work, or requiring me to do that work, he was available to me. Right. There was a bunch of flexibility in him owning his own business. And then he allowed me to see, oh, you can grind and work hard, but be available to your family. I swam and played water polo and I played basketball, and he was at every single event. Right. So he taught me those things, and that was really powerful for me. So he wanted to, I think the answer in short is, he wanted to expose me to his world so I could learn from his world. And I definitely did. And I don't regret any of those hours of hot summer labor. That's for sure.
I mean, at 14, 15, I had a summer youth job in New York, and one of my tasks was to sweep the front of the church, or pick the weeds in the yard about 100. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated every aspect of that job. And I think, like you, I think it built character. I don't know, but I know what it did also. It built an attitude of never wanting to do that again.
Well, yeah, and I think part of the reason why I'm not a farmer right now, because I could have totally gone into the family business, is because of that, right? I was exposed to it, and it ended up not being something I wanted to do. But it also made me a bit of a philosopher, like a thinker. I don't want to label myself as a philosopher, but I spent so much time alone. Or even when I was working with the other guys, we would be too noisy to hear each other to really do much talking. So it was, I mean, literally 3 to 4 months of summer, or 3 months of summer, 8 hours a day during the week, that I was thinking just thinking to myself. I didn't have an iPhone. That wasn't my world, right? I'm too old for that. And so I had all these hours and hours and hours to think and reflect and be in my head. And it didn't drive me crazy, but it has paid forward into my current life with my family and my business and all that. So I'm really grateful for that part too.
At 15 years old, thanks for sharing that. And there's nothing wrong with being titled a philosopher. I'm going to call you the philosopher. At 15 years old, roundabout, there's no distractions. What type of thoughts were running through your head? What was going on?
Ooh, can I go back to that many years ago? A lot of thoughts about my girlfriend, for one of them. That's for sure.
I
Uh,
don't blame you.
how can I make what I'm doing more fun or more efficient? How can I not complain about this, or how can I complain about this? One of the two. And then also, some of the work that I was doing wasn't so mind numbing. I had to really think about what I was doing and how I was going about doing it. So I had to be reflective on that as well. I wouldn't say, I'm sure I had some profound thoughts, but I don't have any to share with you right now about when I was 15 years old.
No worries, but you may have a profound thought about this. You went from working on an orange grove, studying, and then it transitioned into a faith-based men's program. That's quite diverse, from orange grove to physical therapy to faith-based. Uh, how did each of those experiences contribute to your unique coaching style today?
Yeah. So when I moved out and went to college, I got exposed to um, Campus Crusade for Christ. Now it's called Crew, but got exposed to Crew. And I had an opportunity to go, I'm going to go get drunk and get high all the time, because that's kind of my personality if I choose it to be. Or I
Mhm.
can choose Christianity. And I'm not pitting them against each other in the sense that one's bad and one's good. I'm not doing that. But for me, I knew that the path of pursuing like pledging or something like that for fraternity would really mess me up. And I have friends that pledged and they're fantastic people, whatever. But I knew that it would screw me up. So I went and did the Christian route and pursued that. And that then opened the door into going on missions trips. And one of them was on a trip to India. I went to India for 10 days with a group of 20 people. We were there for 10 days. And so we shared with people about God. And when we returned a few months later, a few weeks later, a guy named John that was on the trip that lived in the same area as I did invited me to be part of this men's mentoring program. He said, hey, this is what we do. These guys live on the campus for up to a year, and we help them develop what we call a life map. And what we need right now is someone to live in the house with these guys. So these guys are 18 to 25 years old. They're off track in life. They're stuck. They're struggling, and they need someone to come and live with them and teach them some life skills, and also just be a babysitter to a certain degree, if you will. And I'm 22 at this time. I'm behind in school because I had somehow messed up in my units in college, and I was 40 pounds overweight, and I was terrified to be an adult. I didn't know what to do with my life.
Mm.
And I'm going, John, I need that. I don't need to lead that. I need that myself. And so, but it's when you say yes in life when it's scary is when you get the best results, right? When you say yes and you know in your heart and your spirit that that's what you should do. And so I said yes to the interview, went to the interview, and there's a lot of details I'll skip, but hour and a half later in the interview, Jack, the president of the program, stands up and says, do you want the job? And I'm like, wait, you're offering the job? Which meant that I would be leaving the apartment I was living in. I need to wrap up college first, but leave the apartment I was living in, move in with these guys into this old farmhouse built in the 1800s, and live on this property and try to help these guys' lives get to a better place and help myself get to a better place. So after contemplating it for 5 seconds, I said yes. And then I ended up being a part of the program for a total of 9.5 years in different capacities, but 9.5 years.
Wow, you said a lot
I
in oh my gosh.
We got to smash it in 45 minutes. So I
I
apologize.
know, I know, I know, I know. You mentioned about being afraid to be an adult.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's powerful. What was it about being an adult that made you fearful of taking the leap to such a phenomenal milestone, or a milestone that is uncharted and scary?
Confidence. I had very little confidence at that time. And I was I was afraid of the unknown. A lot of people feel like, you know, the imposter syndrome, where they're going, I feel like an imposter and I can't do this because if people see me, that I'm going to be exposed as a fraud. And in retrospect, looking back on that experience, I fortunately did not cave to my concerns about that I was, you know, in a really bad place personally, where I was overweight. And in fact, when I got the call, if I remember correctly, when I got the call, I was actually covered in poison oak, 40 pounds overweight, and 9 units behind in college, and I only had 1 quarter to go. And so
Wow.
it was just a dumpster fire of a life situation. But when I think about imposter syndrome now, that what I say is it's a fact that if you don't feel like a fake, you're not going to grow. Right. And so in that moment, I went, you know, I feel like a fake, but I'm going to go ahead and go for it. And it's a fact, if you do feel like a fake, you are going to grow, right? If you actually pursue it and you actually go after this thing that seems intimidating, then you're going to grow. And I think in the deepest parts of my unconscious, I knew that that was the reality, that if I went after this, it was scary, but it would be 100% worth it. And I have to give credit to God too, with him kind of nudging me into this world that was terrifying. So primarily a confidence issue. And then I just needed some men. Honestly, I needed some men in my life because my dad was that. But then I needed a new set of mentors in my life that could say, "Hey, no, you're worth it, dude. You're an amazing man because of you, not because of anything you've done, but because of who you
Mm.
are as a just existing. You're amazing." And I think that pivot into this program, and then being able to do that for the other guys in the program too, saying, you know what, Phil, you are amazing. Like just because other people abused you and beat you up and treated you the way they did, that says nothing about who you are as a man and what you're about. And so I got to get fed in that way, and then I got to feed in that way. And so it was meant to be, for sure.
If it sounds like you're saying, hey, be say yes to being a fake, and eventually it's going to work in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, the imposter syndrome is a beautiful thing. It's really telling you in your heart and your head, it's saying, "Hey, there's something here for you." Now, if it lasts a really long time and you really are faking it and you're a liar and you're being deceptive, that's the true meaning of imposter, and that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And I know that's not what you're talking about. But when you feel that tug, that, oh man, this feels really uncomfortable, and I don't feel like I'm qualified. I don't feel like it's the right thing, but you've been called to it, whatever it is. Do it, man. Like, it's 100% worth it. There's no way I'd have the family I have or the experiences I've had if it weren't for, seriously, that one move was huge.
Kyle, there's a constant battle between, there's a constant battle throughout society between, saying yes, battling with yourself, and saying, hey, should I do it? Should I not do it? I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's battling right now? You said yes, but if they look at their situation, nothing about their situation is saying yes.
Right. I think if you think of us in layers, you've got like the spirit, which would be outside of us, and you can label that whatever you want, universe, God, whatever. I label it God. And then
Mhm.
you've got your kind of your soul, like who you really truly are. And then you've got your intellect, and then you've got your emotions, and then you've got your physicality, right?
Mhm.
What usually happens is people's emotions get in the way of the other three yeses, right? So something outside of you says, yes, you should do this. Then who you are, like your soul, says yes, and then your intellect says yes, but your emotions say no. Those other
Mhm.
three should trump it. They're on top of that. They should take a higher priority. Our emotions get in the way, right? We make all of our decisions emotionally. But if we can tune in to those other three layers and know that they are yeses, then let's go. And now if they're no's, then, and your emotions say yes, then listen to the no's, because those three layers are the most truthful, the most real. So I think that's a way to look at it.
That's wonderfully put. You said the group was between 18 to 25-year-old males that you mentored. Did you consider them to be unleadable in the beginning?
I don't think I did, but and it's a term that I use to describe what they could look like. And I like that term because it's a little bit, it kind of tweaks people. Like, no, not some people might think that everyone's leadable, and some people might think that there's some people that aren't leadable. I don't actually know if I even have an opinion on that, but it definitely creates interest. So I say it that way. And the reason that they seem unleadable, I'll give you a story just to kind of help you a little bit here. One of the guys in the program, I can I'll share his first name. His name is Phil. And he was there when I first got there, when I was 22 years old, green, wet behind the ears, scared and lost myself. And he had been sexually abused by his father and brother. So his circumstances they're pretty rough, and like seriously beat up and abused by them. And so he was almost a deaf and a mute, like not deaf, but he was almost a mute. And he would hardly ever speak. There was only one person he would talk to in the program. That was the president. And Phil had been there for like 9 months by the time I got there. And so a lot of rapport and trust had been built. And so what some of the responsibilities in the house are like sweeping up the house, right? Because you're running a home and the students are partially responsible for it. And the leaders are responsible to make sure everything that happens. And on the weekends, we clean up the house. And this was the breakthrough weekend for me and for him, actually. He was in the bathroom sweeping and cleaning the bathroom, and I needed the broom. And so I knock on the door, walk into their bedroom. It's a master bedroom that the students stayed in. Knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Phil, I need the broom. Are you done yet?" And I was kind of irritated. He'd been there a long time and it seemed like he was wasting time, which he probably was. And knock, and he doesn't answer. I'm like, "Phil, dude, give me the broom. I need the broom." And he doesn't respond. So I walk outside the door, walk around the backside of the farmhouse, and I kind of have to be on my tippy toes so that the window is like right in my face. Okay. And I could see him just kind of being in there, and I knock on the glass and I say, "Phil, I need the broom." And of course I was probably a little irritated, so I wasn't in the best place personally. Right. And then he does this, boom, punches his fist through the glass window. It shatters and hits me in the face. Nothing fortunately really got me. I think I got cut a tiny bit. And then his wrist gets cut pretty bad. And long story short, we get him kind of bandaged up, and he ends up being fine. But in that moment, after he broke the glass on my face, I knew that I was the one that needed to apologize. I knew that I was the one that needed to say that I was sorry and that I needed to ask for forgiveness. And so that was one of those moments. That was one of those times where just the jump in maturity in my life happened in a really significant way. And we ended up ultimately becoming friends to a certain degree. Well, he would actually talk to me and open up to me. And that was not at all his norm. Like I said before, he was mute pretty much to everybody else. So I'm not sure if that answered your question that you asked, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an example of the experiences that I had there and how real it got and how challenging it could be for all involved.
You apologize to him and you recognize that you were in a unique space or a bad space. That took a lot of manhood to do that. Do you think the reason that you were able to apologize the way you did was because of what the type of character that your father instilled in you when you were younger?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of, yes, that for sure, and then a lot of other people that have demonstrated what forgiveness looks like, what humility looks like. And I was being a prideful, whatever colorful word you want to use, before he broke the glass. But then when I realized that I could have had glass in my eye, like all kinds of terrible things could have happened to me or him, and it didn't, there was a huge lesson to be learned there. Instead of being pissed and like going and confronting him even more, I was like, wait, this is an opportunity to redeem this situation. And then he actually apologized to me too, and like asked me to forgive him. So it was beautiful. Ultimately, it was really beautiful. And we both humbled ourselves despite just a few moments later being basically extremely prideful towards each other.
Was it that event where the Blue Shirt Leadership Framework was created, or did something else take place before that Blue Shirt Leadership Framework was created? Was that the moment, the birthing moment?
No, I would say so. Many years later, let's see, from then, we'll just say 6 years ago, that event happened in the kind of the early 2000s. But anyway, many years after that, I just started the business, and I was in a place where I knew that the tools that I was using, I couldn't do whatever I wanted with them. So I was using
Mhm.
a tool called DISC. It's a personality assessment tool, and I love it,
Mhm.
and I still use it.
Mhm.
But I can't do whatever I want with that tool. It's not my own. It's not my intellectual property. So I started
Mhm.
thinking, well, I need to create my own IP. I didn't call it that then because I didn't know what the heck IP was, but I needed to create my own IP. And so I started thinking of acronyms, thinking of words that turn into an acronym for leadership. And I love acronyms. I have like 25 acronyms that I use in my business to help me remember all the stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they're great. And one morning, I remember it was about 3 a.m. in the morning, and I wake up, and I'm sure you've had these 3 a.m. wake ups where you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, your brain's just spinning, and then something comes to you. Well, for me, it was like a voice came to me and said, self-awareness. And it doesn't seem like a big word, doesn't seem like a big deal. But when that happened, it was the word I needed to put everything together. So I jumped out of bed, ran into the kitchen. I was just sitting in my boxers from about 3 in the morning till 7 a.m. And I was just writing out all the things that were coming to me. It was like it was just this download into my brain. And so from there, it eventually morphed into B.L.U. And B.L.U. is an acronym for 4 different pillars of great leadership. And so that self-awareness piece was fundamental. It is the foundation of great leadership. And so when I heard that, all these messy acronyms that had like 3 S's and an R, or an F and a Q and a P, just they didn't make any sense. It came
Right.
together. So
Are you a guinea pig for your own teaching?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
I figured that. Did you practice on yourself first before you started, bringing it to the marketplace, or did it sort of balance itself out at the same time?
Yeah, it was both simultaneously. Like as I help people with it, then I'm like, wait a second, I need to morph it, and so I do it on myself. Be that mad scientist type
Yeah.
person. And it's actually been a wonderful journey because I can speak from experience to anybody about why I think these are the rules. And then there's all kinds of sub modalities or subplots underneath B.L.U. that I help people with as well, that I experiment on myself with, because I run my own business too. And
Right.
so, I try to lead myself my family as best as I can as well. So you gotta live it to really get people to buy in my opinion. Like
Absolutely.
I
No,
want to live it so
absolutely.
people get it.
Absolutely. And you're right. Self awareness is not a sexy term. It,
No. Well,
it isn't at all. But, self aware leadership, accountability, the growth mindset, and empowerment. How they intersect? How do they intersect in your personal and professional growth?
yeah. So let me give you a metaphor to explain the acronym a little bit so people can get a word picture. And if you can get this word picture, the acronym will stick with you forever because you see these every single day. They're called houses. And so if you think of leadership like a leadership house, right? Every single house you've ever been in needs a foundation. It has to have a foundation. And that foundation is self-awareness. So the B in B.L.U. is be a self-aware leader. And that is your foundation of great leadership. Without that, you can't build anything, right? Then the L is lead with accountability. So that is the nails that holds the leadership house together. If you don't have accountability, whatever you're building is going to fall apart. I don't care how beautiful the architecture is. If there's not something fastening the wood together, it's going to crumble. And in the process,
Absolutely.
it crushes
Absolutely.
yourself and other people. And so we have to have the nails of accountability. Then you use a growth mindset. The growth mindset is the walls and the roof. And it's the idea that in anybody's home, if they've lived there long enough, or when they first move in, they remodel, right? Our bathroom, we had to remodel our bathroom, replace the floors, do all kinds of stuff in our house. Well, that's what we need to be doing in our leadership. And at sometimes we got to blow the roof off of our leadership and add an additional story because we're growing
Yes.
in our capacity as a
Yes.
leader, right? Which means more people can be invited in, more people can be influenced by you as a leader, right? And then that leads us to empower others, the E in B.L.U. And that is the windows and doors. So great leaders want to influence and serve as many people as possible. And so
Mm.
those windows represent giving people the opportunity to see into your leadership and go, you know what? I really like what Kayshawn is doing. I want to be a part of that. And so they knock on that door and you let them on in, and they get to be underneath your leadership and influence, and you impact them. And then the opposite happens too, which is beautiful. We empower people so well as B.L.U leaders that they start looking outside those windows, and they go, you know what? I think I have an opportunity out there. What do you think, Kyle? And I'm like, yeah, man, go for it. Do it. And
Right.
right there, I will go and hang out with you in your own world and what you're doing in your leadership when I can. And then you help them out because you want them to be successful, because that's the greatest level of service there is when you have a disciple, let's call it, where they've been underneath your wing for long enough that they're ready to go and fly their own. So again, Leadership House, foundation of self-awareness, accountability is the nails that holds Leadership House together. Use a growth mindset, the walls and the roof, and empower others is the windows and doors.
And I know thank you so much. I know every pillar is important, but my favorite pillar is the growth mindset. And the reason for that is if you're not growing, you're dying. And there's no way in the world you can blow the roof off of anything if you're not growing. You will have to downsize.
Yes, it's true. That's great. I'm going to steal that.
It's yours, buddy. It's yours. Your journey involves coaching business owners to achieve greater freedom in their lives.
Yeah.
And this is the part I really want to hone in on, especially for those that are watching and listening, because some of us, we have a traditional job and we are entrepreneurs at the same time, and we want to replace that side hustle or that hobby. We want to replace our traditional job. But so how do you help entrepreneurs and business owners achieve their freedom and achieve freedom in their lives? And how do you navigate encouraging entrepreneurs to drive but also prevent burnout? How do you do that? Because everything is a grind.
Yeah. This is a little cliche, but it's serving others. Because if I'm doing, there's two pieces, but if I'm doing a really good job of serving people on this call, it's going to come forward in some way, shape, or form to their lives, and maybe to mine, maybe not, but that's okay, right? Because I'm out here sharing what I've experienced, and I'm hoping that it makes a big difference in other people's lives. And then when I'm meeting one-to-one with somebody, even if they're not a client, and I'm serving them as best as I can, that's super rewarding to me. And that creates an energy that I need to continue going forward. One of the things that often my clients come to me for is that they think they're coming to me for productivity, right? And then they'll come to me for accountability, which they really are coming to me for accountability. But when they're coming to me for productivity, to stay motivated and all this stuff, it's an energy issue. It's not managing your time, it's managing your energy. And when you serve other people, you're going to get filled and you're going to start to overflow because it's beautiful to serve other people, right? And that to me is how you can stay balanced, because when you're serving other people, it comes back to you. And it's so rewarding to see the benefits of what you've done in service of others. And then of course, someone's going to come around and serve you in some way that you really need in that moment. And when I say serve, I'm not just talking about like financial gain. I'm talking about friendships. Just this Friday, my buddy and I, we've met through business circles and network together and kind of exchange leads and that kind of stuff. And he invited me to go mountain biking. I love mountain biking, and he's a mountain biker, and there's a world-class mountain like 30 minutes from my house. And so we met and we mountain biked. And then afterwards we went and jumped in the ocean together, and we were just serving each other at the same time. And then when I left, my cup was really, really full. Right? I had a wonderful time on the mountain, got to jump in the ocean, smashed my face on the water when I tried to do a flip, didn't land it right, but that's okay. It was a great time. And that's the beauty of serving others. It's really energizing. And I'll share a second part, but I want to take a breath.
No, go ahead. Share. Now go ahead and take the second breath.
Yeah. I would say the other two components of staying balanced, and what every single business I've ever worked with does not have enough of, is systems and empowerment. So systems being what makes your business sing, what makes it struggle, and understanding those systems and testing things and remodeling those things and doing version 2.0 and just constantly measuring and tracking what works and what doesn't work. Because when you do that, instant increase in efficiency happens. And it doesn't cost you anything to measure. It doesn't cost you anything to track, right? How did you land your last lead? How did you get that last contract signed? Well, if you're tracking that closely, you can start to duplicate that and then pass it on to somebody else to do, which is moves us to the empowerment part, right? And if I'm empowering people, then the balance, the weight of the business shifts. And it's not, I'm still fully responsible for running my business, but when I'm empowering other people to help me, now it's this joy to share the ownership, metaphorically, to share the ownership with that person as you empower them, or if you actually bring on a partner to share that ownership in reality. And so empowering other people is kind of that next layer to creating way better balance and making sure you don't burn out. So you've got the replacement energy of serving other people. You've got the systems in place so that you know what works and what doesn't work, and then you empower other people because people want to be empowered. People want to do a great job.
Yes, they do.
So,
no, thank you for sharing that. And empowerment. I believe I think it was Mother Teresa that says when you spray perfume on others, a little bit of it get on yourself as well.
mm-hmm. Yeah, love it.
And I believe that's what empowerment, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I share a little bit of what, because a lot of people are like, well, how do you empower? Can I answer that question?
Absolutely.
So I think I'm gonna write a book about this, like kind of a shorter, like an ebook, but empowerment's a funny animal. And a lot of people are like, just give people things to do or help them to feel like they're the best version of themselves. And that's good. Those things are good. And I'm not taking away from that by any means. But I think there's a piece of empowerment that a lot of people miss. And that is, it's an assumption, and it's a very, very positive assumption. And that assumption is that everyone that you speak with, especially those in your circle and those that you're leading, that every one of those people are fascinating, that they have a beautiful story, that they're a fascinating person, that they're supremely intelligent, that they are amazing. If you start with the assumption that they're amazing, like if you go back to Kayshawn, if you think about someone that you listened to recently, where you're like, man, I need to hear these stories. I need to know what this guy has to say. And you're like riveted. You're on the edge of your seat listening to the person. That's the type of fascination we should have with anybody that we have the opportunity to empower. That level of attention to that person, not exactly what they have to offer, but who they are, that level of rapt attention. So you have to start with that. Assume that they are fascinating. And then because your mind, your unconscious mind is super excited about this person, then you move to the next layer, which is to study them. And you study what are they about? What excites them? What's their communication like? Do they communicate visually, audibly, kinesthetically? What type of personality type do they have in whatever tool that you use? What's their love language, if you know love languages? Learn those things about the people that are in your inner circle, not only in your business, but obviously in your family and your friends. And now you can empower them at a whole nother level. You're first of all fascinated, you studied them, and now you can empower them. And it's beautiful. And then once you get to that level, then you learn how to empower people to think. Because ultimately, a great business owner, they hire people to think. They don't hire people to do tasks and delegate crap to them. Yes, those people needed to do things, do tasks, and yes, they need things delegated to them. But ultimately, you hire an employee to engage their unconscious mind in the work that they do, right? To actually think deeply about the work. And how do you do that as a business owner? You ask great questions. And how do you ask great questions? By studying your people and being fascinated by them, right? So now you got fascination, you've studied them, you're asking powerful questions, and you're shutting the crap up so that you're not interrupting their thoughts, and you're giving them the respect to hear them all the way out, even if the ideas seem stupid at first. Hear it out, man. Like, people are so bad about that as leaders. And then finally, you celebrate. You celebrate them, right? Because they've thought on their own. They are being who they are in your business or in your life. and you celebrate them, what they've achieved or what they've failed at too, because they put the effort in, right? We celebrate kids' failures all the time. They wipe out on their bike and you're like, oh my gosh, you stood up on your bike, you crashed.
Yeah.
Okay, good job, you stood up.
Good job. Yes.
As adults, we quit doing that with one another, right? So those
Right.
are the 4 layers that I think really bring extreme empowerment to people's lives.
I love it, and it sounds like those layers actually they can be utilized not just for business owners,
Right.
but for every aspect of your life. Those are multifaceted levels
Yeah.
that could be applied to every level of your life. Would you agree to that?
100%. And that's my intention when I share about it, because you go back to the balance question. Balance is about the inner person more than anything else, right? And so if our only focus is on empowering those that we lead in the business world or the people that make us money, we have an imbalance on the inner person, which I think is a character flaw. If that's only people I'm focused on to help empower and make better is the people in my business, that's a problem, because now you're neglecting your friends and your family and your spouse and your kids. And that's an imbalance on the inner person. So this idea definitely fits both realms, I guess, if you will.
Absolutely. You've written, you may turn that into a book, and that would be wonderful because I would love to read it. But you've authored 2 books, and including a bestseller. Can you provide some insight or some takeaways on how those messages align with your coaching philosophy?
Yeah. So the first book is called Life Map: Building a Future When You're Lost in the Present. And that book was about my experiences at that men's mentoring program that we were talking about earlier. And what I love about that book, and it's okay, it's fine. People read it. It's fine.
Okay.
But here's the deal. It's still out there on Amazon. And there's a workbook to go with it and everything, because what I do is I write about the 7 areas of life. And then I ask people to ask themselves 3 fundamental questions, which we should do in our business as well. And that's included in the book. But it's the 3 questions are, where am I? Right? So where am I mentally? Where am I spiritually? Where am I emotionally, physically, vocationally, financially, whatever? Where am I? Then we go, okay, now I know where I am. I'm grounded. I'm present. A lot of people don't have a hard time being present. So you get grounded and you get present. This is where I stand currently. Then I go, where do I want to go? Okay, I'm here. And where do I want to go in the next 6 months or 3 months or a year or whatever? And then after that, the next obvious question is, how the heck do I get there? And these are questions we've all heard before, but sometimes we need that guidance. And the book walks you through those 3 questions in each of the critical areas of life and helps you to create a life map for your future, right? Because for me, there's certain areas of my life right now, probably one area where I'm kind of lost right now. I don't have clarity. I'm lost in the present, but I can still build a future, right?
Absolutely.
Despite being lost in the present. And that's the premise of the book. The second book, which has been unpublished, and it's going to be republished in September because of a trademark issue. So disclosure, it's going to be republished under the title Right Now Leadership. So this was the one that was a bestseller under a different name, which I can't share basically. So it's going to be published under Right Now Leadership. And the concept of this book is right now is the opportunity for you to lead. Right now, in this moment, as you're conversing with that employee, as you're having the conversation with your son or daughter, as you're interacting with your friend, right now is the opportunity to lead. And that leadership could be the empowerment side, where you're just asking great questions, or it could be the direct challenging them to grow side, like you were mentioning, Cation. But it's about leading now. And in the book, I write about the 40 different mindsets and habits that people can drive into their life and help them to be able to lead right now and move their life and their business forward in significant ways. And in the book, I give metaphors and stories and very practical challenges and exercises to help people implement those mindsets and habits in their life right now. Because now is the only moment we have, and we're never going to have a yesterday or tomorrow. We only have a now.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's hard to swallow even saying it. I have a hard time saying that because I'm future oriented.
I am as well.
But what happens when you focus on the future, right? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? You can't
Can't.
stop time, you can't speed it up, and
Nope.
you can't slow it down. But what we can do is focus on now. So that's the premise and point of the book, is to help people to do the best they can with the moment they have.
I appreciate you, sir. I mean, it's so much. Man, you are phenomenal at giving so much information in a short period of time. You are really, really concise. I love it. But I do want to ask another question. The communities that you've built, such as Blue Shirt Business Community, Dads in Business Groups, can you reflect on your commitment to supporting these entrepreneurs, and how do these platforms facilitate collaboration and growth amongst business owners? Can you share an experience or challenges? No, and challenges. How about that?
Yeah. So I would say it's really difficult for people to be vulnerable, and people don't, it's not like they're being liars or deceptive. It's not what I'm saying. People just have a hard time being vulnerable. And so my goal in these communities, and it takes a long time, but my goal in these communities is to create at least a decent percentage of the people in the community that are being vulnerable. They're being real with their situations, with, hey, I've got this employee that I'm struggling with, and I don't know what to do because I don't want to fire him, or I'm afraid to fire him, but I really need to fire them. Or
Absolutely.
I need to replace somebody, or I need to hire somebody, or I don't know what to do. Like, it's all these questions of being just kind of stuck and struggling. And the community's design is to do that, do the path of that triangle of the know, like, and trust. And my goal is to help people to get to know each other by me putting some posts out there and asking people questions, and them posting things and asking questions themselves and asking for input, so people get to know them, what they're about. And they start to like them because they're being real and they're sharing who they are and what's going on in their lives and their business. And then from there, you get to trust, right? And so my goal with these communities is to create a community of people that know, like, and trust one another. We do that through networking. We do that through just directly posting on Facebook and Unleadable. But it's a journey. It is not easy to get people that are from various places in the country to just be like, my business really sucks right now. But because what is it? 50% of businesses fail in the first year. Most people's businesses, if they're brand new, suck, and they're not doing well.
Yes. That's to be expected.
It's to be expected. And that's okay. My business sucked the first 2 or 3 years. And that's okay. I figured it out. And I got a lot of help. But that's part of why I have the communities, is to create those opportunities.
And Kyle, real quick, thanks for sharing that. Just because your business suck doesn't mean you suck.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we take things personal.
Yeah.
So if your business is doing well, you walk and beating your chest. I feel great. Your business is not you. It is a part of you. It is something that you help birth, but it's not you. And if it sucks for 2 to 3 years, then let it suck.
Yep. Don't quit.
Don't quit. So, last question. This is the Champion Nation podcast. What does being a champion mean to you?
I think of Kobe Bryant. And there's a story. Do you know Jason Williams?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he was a point guard. I can't remember what team. So Jason Williams and his team I think it was the Rockets at the time, was going to play the Lakers. And so Jason Williams goes to the game ahead of time, and as he gets to the court, he hears this bounce, 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 and he's like, "Who's in here already?" And it was like an hour and a half before the game. Bounce, bounce. And he walks on the court and he sees Kobe Bryant, right? And Kobe's sweating. Like, he's already covered in sweat, and he's been working hard. He's been there at least 30 minutes, something like that. And he's doing game speed moves, right? He's going after it. So then Jason warms up and he does his thing. And then when Jason's done, Kobe's still doing his thing. He's still grinding, still going hard. And then Jason, he can't help it. So he walks up to Kobe and he's like, "Kobe, what are you doing?" And Kobe says to him, "I just want you to know that no matter how hard you work, I'm here and I'm always going to outwork you." And then he goes and drops 50 on him that night, 50 or 40 or something like that night. It's just that mentality is intense. but that's the type of commitment that changes lives, changes businesses. And if you can find that level of buy-in into whatever you're passionate about, including your family, including your friends, right? That type of dedication. Here we go. Right? Here we go.
I love it, Kyle. Thank you so much for sharing that. Where could our listeners and viewers reach you?
Yeah, go to blueshirtcoaching.com. And then also you can look up the Blue Shirt Business Community on Facebook or Dads in Business on Unleadable. Those are the best places to connect with me, for sure.
Kyle, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. We got to come back and do another one sometime next year.
Yeah, let's do it.
But Kyle said right now. Right, Kyle? That's what you said?
Right now.
Right now is the time for you to be that leader for yourself first. For yourself first. Your children, your spouse, your partner, your business. Right now is the time. Stop putting it off. I don't know when you're going to watch this, but today is Sunday. You know, a lot of times we like to do things at the beginning of the week. But if you're watching this on a Saturday, right now is the time to get started. Have a fantastic champion day. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Take care.